Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Patricia Pelosi, born March 26, 1940, is an American politician serving as Speaker of the United States House of Representatives since 2019, and previously from 2007 to 2011. She has served as a U.S. Representative from California since 1987. A member of the Democratic Party, Pelosi is the only woman to have served as Speaker of the U.S. House. A member of the D'Alessandro political family, Pelosi's father, Thomas D'Alessandro Jr., was a notable longtime politician. Before her election to Congress, she chaired the California Democratic Party from 1981 until 1983. Now in her 18th term, Pelosi was first elected to Congress in a 1987 special election. She is the Dean of California's congressional delegation. She represents California's 12th congressional district, which comprises most of San Francisco. Initially, Pelosi represented the 5th District, 1987 to 1993. After district boundaries were redrawn following the 1990 census, she represented the 8th District, 1993 to 2013. Pelosi has led the House Democrats since 2003. She is the first woman to lead a party in Congress, and has served twice as House Minority Leader, 2003 to 2007 and 2011 to 2019, and as House Speaker, 2007 to 2011 and since 2019, respectively. Pelosi was a major opponent of the Iraq War as well as the Bush administration's 2005 attempt to partially privatize Social Security. During her first speakership, she was instrumental in the passage of many of the Obama administration's landmark bills, including the Affordable Care Act, the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act, the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Repeal Act, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, and the 2010 Tax Relief Act. Pelosi lost the speakership in 2011 after the Republican Party won a majority in the House in the 2010 elections, but retained her role as leader of the House Democratic Caucus and returned to the role of House Minority Leader. In the 2018 midterm elections, the Democrats regained control of the House. When the 116th Congress convened in January 2019, Pelosi was again elected Speaker, becoming the first former Speaker to return to the post since Sam Rayburn in 1955. Under Pelosi's leadership, the House twice impeached President Donald Trump, first in December 2019, and again in January 2021. Trump was acquitted both times by the Senate. On January 3, 2021, Pelosi was re-elected to a fourth term as Speaker of the House. During her second speakership, she was instrumental in the passage of the Biden administration's two major bills, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the American Rescue Plan Act. She announced in January 2022 that she would seek re-election as a U.S. representative that year, though she had pledged in 2018 to not seek the speakership again. Pelosi was born in Baltimore to an Italian-American family. She was the only daughter and the youngest of 7 children of Annunciata M. Nancy D'Alessandro, née Lombardi, and Thomas D'Alessandro Jr. Her mother was born in Fornelli, Isernia, Molise, in South Italy, and came to the U.S. in 1912. Her father could trace his Italian ancestry to Genoa, Venice, and Abruzzo. When Nancy was born, her father was a Democratic congressman from Maryland. He became mayor of Baltimore 7 years later. Pelosi's mother was also active in politics, organizing Democratic women and teaching her daughter the value of social networking. Pelosi's brother, Thomas D'Alessandro III, also a Democrat, was mayor of Baltimore from 1967 to 1971. Pelosi was involved with politics from an early age. She helped her father at his campaign events. She attended John F. Kennedy's inaugural address when he was sworn in as president in January 1961. In 1958, Pelosi graduated from the Institute of Notre Dame, an all-girls Catholic high school in Baltimore. In 1962, she graduated from Trinity College in Washington, D.C., with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. Pelosi interned for Senator Daniel Brewster, Democrat Maryland, in the 1960s alongside future House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer. After moving to San Francisco, Pelosi became friends with 5th District Congressman Philip Burton, and began working her way up in Democratic politics. In 1976, she was elected as a Democratic National Committee member from California, a position she would hold until 1996. She was elected as party chair for Northern California in January 1977, and 4 years later was selected to head the California Democratic Party, which she led until 1983. Subsequently, Pelosi served as the San Francisco Democratic National Convention Host Committee chairwoman in 1984, and then as Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee Finance Chair from 1985 to 1986. Philip Burton died in 1983 and was succeeded by his wife, Sala Burton, who won a special election in 1983. Sala Burton won 2 more elections, in 1984 and in 1986. In late 1986, Burton became ill with cancer and decided not to run for re-election in 1988. She picked Pelosi as her designated successor, guaranteeing her the support of the Burton's contacts. Burton died on February 1, 1987, just a month after being sworn in for a second full term. Pelosi won the special election to succeed her, narrowly defeating Democratic San Francisco Supervisor Harry Britt on April 7, 1987, and easily defeating Republican Harriet Ross in a June 2 runoff. Pelosi took office a week later. Pelosi represents one of the safest Democratic districts in the country. Democrats have held the seat since 1949 and Republicans, who currently make up only 13% of registered voters in the district, have not made a serious bid for the seat since the early 1960s. She won re-election in the regular election in 1988 and has been re-elected another 16 times with no substantive opposition, winning with an average of 80% of the vote. She has not participated in candidates' debates since her 1987 race against Harriet Ross. The strongest challenge Pelosi has faced was in 2020 when fellow Democrat Shahid Buttar won 22.4% of the vote, and Pelosi won 77.6%. For the 2000 and 2002 election cycles, she held the distinction of contributing the most money among members of Congress to other congressional campaigns. In the 2006 midterm elections, the Democrats took control of the House, picking up 30 seats. The change in control meant as House Minority Leader, Pelosi was widely expected to become Speaker of the House in the next Congress. On November 16, 2006, the Democratic caucus unanimously chose Pelosi as the Democratic candidate for Speaker. Pelosi supported her longtime friend, John Murtha of Pennsylvania, for the position of House Majority Leader, the second-ranking post in the House Democratic caucus. His competitor was House Minority Whip Steny Hoyer of Maryland, who had been Pelosi's second-in-command since 2003. Hoyer was elected as House Majority Leader over Murtha by a margin of 149 to 86 within the caucus. On January 4, Pelosi defeated Republican John Boehner of Ohio, 233 votes to 202, in the election for Speaker of the House. As Speaker, Pelosi was still the leader of the House Democrats. The Speaker is considered to be the leader of their House caucus. However, by tradition, she did not normally participate in debate and almost never voted on the floor, though she had every right to do so as a full House member. She was also not a member of any House committees. Pelosi was re-elected as Speaker in 2009. During and after her first tenure as Speaker, Pelosi was perceived and/or characterized as a contentious political figure. Republican candidates frequently associated their Democratic opponents with her. At times, centrists, progressive candidates, and incumbent Democrats all expressed opposition to her continued tenure. Blocking of impeachment proceedings against President Bush. In the wake of Bush's 2004 re-election, several leading House Democrats believed they should pursue impeachment proceedings against him, asserting that he had misled Congress about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq and violated American civil liberties by authorizing warrantless wiretaps. In May 2006, with an eye on the upcoming congressional elections, which offered the possibility of Democrats taking back control of the House for the first time since 1994, Pelosi told colleagues that, while the Democrats would conduct vigorous oversight of Bush administration policy, an impeachment investigation was off the table. A week earlier, she had told The Washington Post that, although Democrats would not set out to impeach Bush, you never know where investigations might lead. After becoming Speaker in January 2007, Pelosi held firm against impeachment, notwithstanding strong support for it among her constituents. In the November 2008 election, she withstood a challenge for her seat by anti-war activist Cindy Sheehan, who ran as an independent primarily because of Pelosi's refusal to pursue impeachment. In the 2018 midterm elections, the Democrats regained a majority in the House. On November 28, House Democrats nominated Pelosi to once again serve as Speaker. She was re-elected to the speakership at the start of the 116th Congress on January 3, 2019. Pelosi clinched the speakership after weeks of whittling down opposition from some fellow Democrats seeking a new generation of leadership. The deal to win over holdouts put an expiration date on her tenure. She promised not to stay more than 4 years in the job. 220 House Democrats voted for Pelosi as Speaker and 15 for someone else or no one. On February 4, 2020, at the conclusion of Trump's State of the Union address, Pelosi tore up her official copy of it. Her stated reason for doing so was because it was a courteous thing to do considering the alternatives. It was such a dirty speech. Trump and other Republicans criticized her for this. In December 2021, Pelosi announced her candidacy for re-election in 2022. On September 29, 2019, Pelosi announced the launch of an impeachment inquiry against Trump. On December 5, 2019, after the inquiry had taken place, Pelosi authorized the Judiciary Committee to begin drafting articles of impeachment. After hearings were held, 102 articles of impeachment were announced on December 10. The House of Representatives approved both articles on December 18, thereby formally impeaching Trump. On the eve of Trump's trial before the U.S. Senate, the Washington Post political writer Paul Kane called Pelosi the most powerful House Speaker in at least 25 years, noting that some historians were comparing her influence to that of former Speaker Sam Rayburn. Pelosi signs the article of impeachment for the second impeachment of Donald Trump on January 13, 2021. The day after the January 6, 2021, storming of the United States Capitol, Pelosi demanded that Trump either resign or be removed from office through the clauses of Section 4 of the 25th Amendment to the United States Constitution, threatening impeachment if this did not happen. On January 10, she issued a 24-hour ultimatum to Vice President Mike Pence that if he did not invoke the 25th Amendment, she would proceed with legislation to impeach Trump. On January 13, the House of Representatives voted to impeach Trump a second time. Foreign Affairs, China. Since the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, Pelosi has opposed expanding trade relationships with China until it improves its human rights record. In 1999, ahead of Chinese Premier Zhu Rongji's visit to the U.S. for talks over World Trade Organization admission for China, Pelosi called on President Clinton and Vice President Gore to ask Zhu to recognize the 1989 protests as a pro-democracy effort. In 2008, after a meeting with the Dalai Lama and officials in the Tibetan government in exile, Pelosi criticized the People's Republic of China for its handling of the unrest in Tibet. Addressing a crowd of thousands of Tibetans in Dharamshala, India, Pelosi called on freedom-loving people worldwide to denounce China for its human rights abuses in Tibet. The same year, Pelosi commended the European Parliament for its bold decision to award the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought to Chinese dissident and human rights activist Hu Jia, and called upon the Chinese government to immediately and unconditionally release Hu Jia from prison and to respect the fundamental freedoms of all the people in China. Pelosi criticized the imprisonment of Hong Kong democracy activists in August 2017 for their roles in a protest at the Civic Square in front of the central government complex in Hong Kong. She called the ruling an injustice that should shock the conscience of the world. Before the Trump administration took concrete measures against China in late March 2018, Pelosi and other Democratic leaders pressed Trump to focus more on China and impose real punishments, such as fulfill his own campaign commitments to label China a currency manipulator and stop China from pressuring U.S. tech companies into giving up intellectual property rights. Pelosi urged Trump to take a strong stand against unfair market barriers in China. In September 2019, Pelosi met with Hong Kong pro-democracy activist Joshua Wong on Capitol Hill. Chinese media responded by accusing Pelosi of backing and encouraging radical activists. 231. On the eve of the 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, Pelosi advised American athletes competing, "I would say to our athletes, you are there to compete. Do not risk incurring the anger of the Chinese government, because they are ruthless." North Korea? Nancy Pelosi is one of the few members of Congress to have traveled to North Korea. She has expressed concern about the danger of nuclear proliferation from the North Korean regime, and the ongoing problems of hunger and oppression imposed by that country's leadership. In August 2017, following Trump's warning that North Korea will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen in the event of further threats to the United States, Pelosi said the comments were recklessly belligerent and demonstrate a grave lack of appreciation for the severity of the North Korean nuclear situation. His saber-rattling and provocative, impulsive rhetoric erode our credibility. In November 2017, after the Pentagon sent a letter to lawmakers stating a ground invasion was the only way to destroy all North Korea's nuclear weapons without concern for having missed any, Pelosi said she was concerned about Pyongyang selling nuclear technology to third parties and called for the United States to exhaust every other remedy. In June 2018, after Trump praised North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, Pelosi said in a statement, "In his haste to reach an agreement, President Trump elevated North Korea to the level of the United States while preserving the regime's status quo." Russia. In December 2017, Pelosi wrote a letter to Speaker Paul Ryan advocating for the continued House investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election on the grounds that Americans deserved a comprehensive and fair investigation into Russia's attack, and America's democracy and national security being at stake. Pelosi cited the need for Congress to fully investigate Russia's assault on our election systems to prevent future foreign attacks. In February 2018, after the release of a Republican report alleging surveillance abuses by the Justice Department, Pelosi accused Trump of siding with President of Russia Vladimir Putin at the expense of preserving intelligence sources and methods. In July, Pelosi asserted that Trump was afraid to mention the 12 indictments against people connected to the intelligence community in Russia during his meeting with Putin and questioned what intelligence the Russians had on Trump to cause his behavior. She said Putin would not be welcomed by Congress even if he visited Washington as a result of his actions. Putin's ongoing attacks on our elections and on Western democracies and his illegal actions in Crimea and the rest of Ukraine deserve the fierce, unanimous condemnation of the international community, not a VIP ticket to our nation's capital. She called for House Speaker Ryan to make clear that there is not, and never will be, an invitation for a thug like Putin to address the United States Congress. On multiple occasions, Pelosi said of Trump, "With him, all roads lead to Putin," including with regard to the Trump-Ukraine scandal, a lack of action against the alleged Russian bounty program, and Trump's incitement of the storming of the Capitol. Thanks for watching HerStory channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe our channel.